Hello, my name is Albert Gurrier, and welcome to another installment of Slammin Synapses. If you're viewing me through YouTube, you'll see a subscribe button up here. Click on that, keep up to date with the latest ongoings here. Drop me a comment below if you want to as well. If you have a phone, there's many ways of doing that there too. This segment is going to be submitted for possible inclusion to the PW Insider family of websites. That's pwinsider.com, pwinsiderelite.com, and pwinsiderextra.com. No E on that one. They also have a Facebook page at PW Insider and on Twitter at pwinsider.com. Well, not .com, but pwinsider.com. Neat site, like I said, is a great site to go to. Lots of great audio, lots of great video. Definitely worth it. So check it out. Going to be going into a couple of segments. Going to be going over the latest intro to my Hall of Fame at the end, but going to start this out with this. Imagine you are watching WWE or WCW or TNA, and pay-per-views coming up, like this Sunday, for instance. Not even using the Rumble example, but okay, we'll tell you what, we'll use the Rumble as an example. This Sunday, you are seeing John Cena versus Kane. You're seeing Daniel Bryan, Mark Henry, and The Big Show in a match. And you're going to see CM Punk versus Dolph Ziggler. Now imagine if the Monday prior to that pay-per-view, you saw CM Punk versus Dolph Ziggler, Mark Henry versus Show versus Bryan, and you saw John Cena versus Kane. Kind of eliminates why you'd want to order the pay-per-view. But so many times throughout the history of wrestling, whether it be WCW and WWE lately, I'll get to that in just a moment, it just seems like they have no idea what the concept of pushing towards a pay-per-view is some days. If you're going to give away what the main draw of that show, of that event, the week prior to that. WCW was notorious for that. They would have events where they would just like put the main event on or one of their superstar matches on prior to the event. That made no sense. Because I mean, after watching that match, why would I pay money to see it on the pay-per-view if I've seen it already? Regardless of the finish, why would I pay to see it? The fact that they continue that was just mind-boggling. What brings me to current time is this past Monday on Raw. It's like all of a sudden we're mentioning a match. CM Punk versus John Laurinaitis. Now, granted, the match didn't go off the way it should have, but it shouldn't have been like pushed. It shouldn't have even been mentioned as a match on the program. I mean, you could have John Laurinaitis screwing Punk all the way to a pushed match, but the fact that they just threw it out there, as I think I recall a story where Steve Austin was supposed to take on Brock Lesnar on a Raw without any push towards it, and Steve Austin kind of said, hey, why are we doing this match when we haven't built to it? Why are we leaving money on the table in terms of where we go with this? And the fact that on Raw they pushed it as a match. It wasn't a meet together. It wasn't like due to some other it wasn't like we built a CM Punk versus Otunga match and then John Laurinaitis came out to interfere or something. They pushed it as a match on that show. I mean, all these weeks building to a possible confrontation between John Laurinaitis and CM Punk, and it gets wasted on pushing it as a match on Raw. Instead of doing things to continually build to it, to where you could say it didn't even have to be a pay-per-view match. It could have been saved for like a Raw after a pay-per-view, or could have been pushed on a Raw a couple of weeks in. Like we could have. It's like, okay, we've just got word next week or week after or at the pay-per-view we're gonna have CM Punk versus John Laurinaitis in the main event. Be there. Instead, after all these weeks, CM Punk versus John Laurinaitis, main event of Raw. Why? Why is it that people don't have the patience enough to give a payoff for some of their storylines. I mean, some storylines get kind of like blown off, but the fact that you're putting on a match before you want people to either pay for it, or you're putting on a match when you could have built it up a little bit longer and then actually introduced it as a match on the next show or next one after that or whatever. Why do you do that? Why do you do that? If anyone can explain that to me, why do you do that? Because now if you push a match between CM Punk versus John Laurinaitis, it takes away from the steam of it because you've already pushed it as a match before. Granted, Otunga was involved in it and John Laurinaitis came in afterwards and got the GTS, which was also a bad mistake. I mean, granted, Steve Austin would go stunnering people all over the place, but like when he did it to McMahon, when he finally did it, there was this big build towards it, and when it happened, it was the payoff. That was the payoff moment. But they blew it by mentioning this as a match. I mean, if John Laurinaitis came in and did something to interfere with Punk's match, like, they could have saved this for the Rumble. They could have definitely saved this for the Rumble. CM Punk, Dolph Ziggler, John Laurinaitis gets involved, and Dolph walks away with the title, or CM Punk wins via disqualification. I mean, granted, John's going to be the referee in that one, but if you put the GTS on him in that match, there would have been the payoff for the build for it. Instead, CM Punk, John Laurinaitis, main event of Raw. Just blows my mind. They took a bunch of money that they had on the table that they could have made bank with, and they threw it all away for a 5-minute segment. Like I said, you can never build up to that match again. No matter how hard you try, you cannot push CM Punk versus John Laurinaitis as the first time they've ever had a match. Because you did it already. You did it already and you blew the payoff. Like I said, why would I, if I'm watching your show, why would I get excited about seeing their match begin when I've already seen their match and had a screw job as part of the process? Think about it. Have patience. And if you do have patience with it, allow it to get to the point to where you can make money off of it. Because just throwing it out there as a main event on a Raw when you haven't really built or pushed to it, I mean, they've been building it, but to put it on there without any push for it, it's just like, okay, we just heard this one, CM Punk versus John Laurinaitis tonight. Why? That's all I'm going to keep asking. Why? I mean, that's why ratings are the way they are nowadays. I mean, Raw used to bring in a hefty rating. But now it's like, okay, we're getting 2s, we're getting 3s. Getting low 3s, I should say. But why would I invest myself in a product that doesn't really give the payoff much? Just mind-boggling. Like I said, we could have saved this for a Rumble. We could have saved this for the Elimination Chamber. Could have saved it for a 3-hour Raw or something 2 weeks down the line, 2 or 3 weeks down the line. Could have saved that moment. But they blew it. Now you can never get back to that. WCW used to do that a lot. Big matches for the pay-per-view. They blew it. They can't get back to that. First time ever matches that are supposedly going to happen at a pay-per-view happens the week before on a Nitro or a Thunder or a Raw or what have you. You can never get that back. No matter how hard you try, you can never get that back. And that's shameful. That's bad booking. That's bad planning. That's just bad overall. Think about that in the future. Steve Austin, Vince McMahon, when it happened, made money. Why? Because it called for it. The situations called for it. It led to that. I mean, when Steve Austin stunned McMahon for the first time, it came from out of nowhere. But it mattered. So that when they had their confrontation down the line and actually had a match, it's like, okay, it made sense. Because, yeah, it's basically Austin was stalking McMahon all over the place. Got to the little gun segment where it was like bang, bang, but it built to that. The payoff was there. So when it happens, like, wow, that's awesome. Not pushed lamely, throwing a Tonga in there, and then just could have made money. Didn't choose to be that way. Oh well. So, enough about that. We've done this before. First entrant into my Hall of Fame would be Colt Cabana, if you see my segments from a couple of weeks ago. This week, he's been champion many times. He's been a world heavyweight champion. He pretty much brought the term Rudy Poo to fruition. Matter of fact, in a lot of his interviews, he mentioned the Rudy Poos out there. And it's not who you're thinking it is. No, I mean, The Rock may be the one that may mention something about all your Rudy Poo candy asses out there. But to me, whenever I think about the phrase Rudy Poo, first person that comes to mind is my second entrant into the Hall of Fame. And that's the Iceman King Parsons. Iceman King Parsons was definitely one of the better workers out there. Definitely one at the greatest at his time. He held the World Class Heavyweight Champion. He's held many titles in World Class, the UWF. Where else has he held championships in? I believe he held it in GWF as well. He's held quite a few titles in many different federations. He's teamed with Rock and Roll Buck Sumoff. He's teamed with Terry Taylor, Chris Adams. If you remember the incident where Chris Adams and Iceman King Parsons decided that, was it Chris Adams or Terry Taylor? There was a match where it was for the tag team titles. It was a tournament. There was a count out. Oh yeah, it was Chris Adams. Chris Adams wanted to do the right thing and continue the match, but Iceman King Parsons says, "We're in the finals, man. We're in the finals." And he wound up turning on Chris Adams later. But yeah, King Parsons is, I mean, anytime I hear the song anytime I hear Sister Sledge's "We Are Family," the very first person I think about is King Parsons. Because when that music hit, he came out to the ring, that crowd was hot. That crowd was rocking. It's like the Iceman is in the building. It's like the charisma that he had and the style that he had was just awesome. I miss watching his matches. He still does matches from time to time, but I miss seeing him in action. Miss that excitement that was there. But for that reason, he is my second entrant into the Unsung Heroes Hall of Fame. So welcome. You are joining Colt Cabana in that hall there. So, like your mama says, it bees that way sometimes. Have mercy. Next entrant probably in about a couple of weeks, another month. Won't rush this along, but granted, you will see people in my hall that you probably won't see in others, but they deserve to be. What else? I do want to thank you guys for viewing my previous segments. Last segment I did, ECW and PW Insider stuff, has gained quite a few viewers there. I'm still surprised that I'm picking up viewers on the Barry Windham joins the Four Horsemen one, but I'm glad for those of you that have decided to watch them. If you want to check out my archives, go on my YouTube channel. You'll see my previous segments. Hopefully you take away a little bit something from them. If you do want to drop me a comment, email me at agurrier@yahoo.com. You can find me on Facebook at my name, Albert Gurrier. You'll see a graphic here that will show that. I also have a Facebook page, Slammin Synapses, no G on there. You feel free to join me there too. And you could also find me on Twitter at Slammin Synapses, once again, no G. You could tweet me, you could send me stuff. If you are a wrestling federation or run one or know someone that does, that you think may benefit from me pushing on these segments, feel free to let me know. Let me know the information. I'll be more than happy to do that. I'm done so before with the Yokozuna Memorial, and I've also done so with the debut of Progress Wrestling. They have a card coming up in March. As soon as when I get more information about it, I'll push a little bit more. But I'm more than happy to be a venue for people like you that may have information that you think is vital to get out on these segments. The only thing I ask is that you give me a mention, whether it be on Twitter or if you want to have people watch me or if you want to embed me on your site. Do me that favor. I'd be more than happy to do it for you. So, by all means, use me. It's what I'm here for. Take advantage of it. So, let's see what else I gotta say. Oh, the opening for this segment, the new one. I do want to thank my uncle-in-law. His name is Corey Black, who did that for me. He's very much appreciative of that. I loved it so much I decided to include it. So, I guess, that being said, this is Albert Gurrier, Slammin Synapses. So long from ringside. Good night, everybody.